We all make mistakes, but does everybody acknowledge those mistakes? Sometimes after a breakup, it feels like our ex feels no remorse about anything that happened, that they just move on with life, act like it wasn't really a big deal, and that hurts. It hurt me with my last relationship when that's pretty much how my ex treated me. So I understand that feeling if that's what you're going through and you're wondering, does your do any exes regret anything? That's a really important question. I'm going to talk a little bit about it. So for those of you who've followed my channel, you know that I've really had two major relationships in my life, and I want to go backwards, not to the ex that was most recent, but to the one before that, and we're talking like a decade ago. With that ex, I think if I were that ex and I was looking at myself moving on from him, I would probably think that I had no regrets. Like, I would maybe feel like how I felt about my current ex. Like, he just moved on, like nothing mattered. And so I want to explain like what was going on and why I did that and how I actually really did have regrets. That relationship was just a complete train wreck. It was like constant fighting. I don't think either one of us was ever really happy in that relationship, and it was pretty obvious, at least to me it was, and I can't believe that it wouldn't be obvious to him as well. You know, he was always drinking. Not okay, not good in any kind of relationship to have somebody who's regularly impaired. And as I said, we constantly got into fights. Like, he would be over my apartment all the time, and I don't know, like, we shared activities and we did things together, but it really wasn't much of a relationship because there wasn't very much loving feelings going on. There wasn't a lot of discussion of emotions and dreams and all of that kind of stuff, and really it was just constant bickering and back and forth and general nastiness. So by the time that relationship ended, it was ready to end, and I don't know how he felt about things because I never really followed up, but we got into this huge fight one night. He was over at my apartment, and basically I kicked him out, slammed the door, and said, "I never want to see you back here again." That time I really meant it, and it was definitely clear in my tone of voice and definitely clear in the way that I showed him that I did not want him to be around any longer. And so that was pretty much the end of that relationship, and I'm glad because that relationship really needed to end. Now obviously your situation can be totally different from this, so if you want to let me know a little bit more about your situation, maybe talk with some people down below in the comments about it, feel free to. But for me, that was the end of that relationship, and from that point on I pretty much moved on. The only thing that I did from there, you know, he sent me like an email, and it was kind of like this emotional, almost like a passive aggressive like way to try to get me to come back and stay in the relationship and basically just continue the way that we were doing things, and I was not having it. So I think I just ignored that email, to be honest. But then I don't know, I started to grow a little bit in the coming months, and I was thinking about what had just happened and why did it happen. And once like I had my perspective, once I got out of that situation and kind of could look at it from a little bit of distance, I realized like it was just bad. It was bad on all sides. So I felt bad about continuing it. I felt bad about my part in things. And I had sent out this email to a bunch of people in my life because I was just kind of like emotional and weird at that time. Just letting everybody know that I loved them and I was happy that they were in my life. And he was one of those people, and he was surprised that I sent that out and responded and was like basically asking like, did you mean to send this? And I just said yes. And that was where things ended. I've never spoken to him since. I have no idea what's going on in his life. Generally I don't really care, and I hope that doesn't sound rude or anything, but it's just like it was so long ago and it was so clear that that relationship was not good, that like it's over, and it should have been over. And I don't know anything about him. I just hope that he's having a wonderful life now, you know. But I think that if I were him and all I got was like that one email, and all I got was this like, "I never want to see you again," I would look at me and think like, well, he doesn't regret anything, because I never really expressed that I regretted anything. I never let him know any of the stuff that I just told you. I never apologized for any of the arguments. I never acknowledged my part in things. I never expressed anything. Even throughout the relationship, I never really expressed what he meant to me and what he was. I don't even think I knew what he was and what we were even doing. So I think if I were him, I would look at me and think he doesn't have any feelings about what happened. And basically, I would probably be like, what a jerk. But the truth is that I do regret what happened. As I said, I regret that it happened at all, and I regret that things just didn't work better, and I acknowledge that I was a part of that. It wasn't all his fault. So a really quick answer to this is that yes, exes can regret things. I regret the things that happened in that relationship, and that doesn't mean that I want to get back into that relationship. It doesn't mean that, like, that's was the right relationship for me or him. But I do feel bad about the way that things went. So in your case, it's absolutely possible that your ex regrets whatever went on in your relationship or the breakup. Now let's take that situation and contrast it with my current ex, because I'm kind of on the other side of the table here. And when I think about my current ex, it's really interesting because he did express to me that he regretted things, and he did express to me that he felt bad about the way that things went. But I don't believe him. And maybe you can relate to this because he never showed any acknowledgement of the things that he did during our relationship. Like he would say that he felt bad about things that he did, but then he never changed his actions, and he never really demonstrated to me that he fully even understood the way that he affected me. So by the time we got to the breakup and he was saying, oh, I'm sorry about this and that and the other thing, it just felt like, yeah, okay, I'm sure you're sorry because nothing has changed over the course of this entire relationship, and here we are in the breakup and I'm supposed to believe that you care now? And to be honest, after 6 years together with him, he never really showed any signs that he was grieving the relationship. And to be fair, I never showed any signs to that ex from 10 years ago, from really longer, that I was grieving that relationship either. So this is that one of those weird things where you got to kind of like look at both sides and try to understand what's going on here. And every situation's different. But with my ex, I just never felt it. And maybe that's kind of the key here when it comes to when you're wondering if an ex regrets something. I personally do not believe that my ex has the maturity or the perspective to really own the things that he did and feel bad about them and communicate that to me in a way that I can hear it and that acknowledges the way that I felt. In order to truly regret something, we have to be mature enough to see our own part in things, acknowledge our part in things, and express what we did. And I don't even think that's enough. I really think, because this is my experience of how things went down, because he expressed to me that he regretted these things, but it wasn't enough. Even if he really did regret it, he didn't communicate to me that he really understood what he was regretting. I don't feel acknowledged. I don't feel heard. And I don't feel like he really understands the pain. So is it true regret then? I don't think it's true regret if you can't have a real discussion and a real understanding of what you did. Maybe it doesn't really need to be communicated. Maybe he doesn't have to actually tell me like what went on and whatnot. But I do think that there needs to be a true acknowledgement and a real understanding. It's hard to explain what that means. It means that you have to be able to get inside and empathize with the person that you hurt. And I don't believe that my ex has that capability or is willing to nurture that capability in himself to see how he made me feel. And this is why every situation is different, because your ex maybe does feel bad, but they're not communicating it to you, or maybe they don't feel bad and they're just a jerk and they haven't been able to really introspect and see their own part in things. Maybe it hurts too much for them to be able to do that. Maybe they think so low of themselves that to try to own something makes them feel even lower and it's too painful. I know that's hard to really understand sometimes, but that's kind of the way that sometimes people deal with things is that they kind of push them away and they don't take responsibility because they already think so poorly about themselves. But the thing is, that is not maturity. True maturity is understanding that we do poor things sometimes and we hurt people, and acknowledging it and communicating to them and empathizing with them that we've made a mistake, that we're sorry, we understand what it means, and actually changing our actions based on what we did. Not everybody can do that, but it's still their responsibility, even if it hurts, even if it's hard, to acknowledge that this is a problem and maybe go in to see a therapist if it's something that's too hard for them to work on. Do those people regret? I think that if they were to really get at the heart of what's going on and look really deep down inside and get past all of the blockages that are in their way, that they would regret what happened. But right now, in the moment, they don't. There is some good news to all of this, though, and that is that you do not need somebody else's regret to move forward in life, to boost yourself back up, to get back on your feet and continue moving. I know that's hard, and I know it frustrates me like all the time that my ex has not really truly shown regret for the things that have happened. Whether he will in the future or not, I don't know. I don't think it really matters because I've moved on with my life and I'm continuing doing the things that make me feel happy and doing life the way that I want to do life. You know, I'm going to continue to have integrity and express myself as best I can and communicate when I make mistakes as best I can to the people who need to hear it. And although it's a little hard to hear, maybe that's what your ex is doing too. Maybe this is just the best they can do right now. We don't really know what the future is going to look like. Do you think that your ex regrets what happened in your relationship? Let me know in the comments.